Hi, 7th graders. Hope everyone's doing well. We are on our last shape for volume, and our last shape is a sphere, which is a 3D circle. And let's first start by talking about where have you seen spheres in the real world. This one should be pretty easy. Let's see what you guys can come up with. A couple that I came up with is planet Earth. Let me get a new marker here. Okay. Soccer ball. You could use basketball, volleyball, tennis ball, beach ball, balloon. I think you guys get the idea. So what does it mean to find the volume of the sphere? You are finding the space inside that circle. So notice that was key in all four of them. So volume is that space inside. So how much air would we need to fill a basketball? How much air do we need to put in a balloon? Provide a real world example of when someone might need to find that volume. So for example, when you buy a basketball, they're deflated. So, or example, when you fill up a water balloon, okay, you want to fill to its max capacity without it popping. So those are a few real world examples. Here is our volume formula. This one's probably kind of similar to what our cones were in terms of there's a fraction out in front. Notice the difference here, though, is pi r cubed. Okay, we've seen a lot of squared because that's a flat 2D circle. We now have a 3D circle. Okay, therefore, this is raised to the third power. So we're going to talk about that. Normally, when you have something squared, it's your number times itself twice. This is going to be whatever your radius is times itself 3 times. Okay, so let's get into an example. Calculate the volume of this. We'll call it a basketball for this case. So we're going to start by writing our formula. Okay, then we will 4/3 stays. I'm going to keep pi. My radius here, so let's take a look. We should be getting good at this by now. Is 24 inches a radius, or is that a diameter? That is a diameter. So if my diameter is 24, my radius would be 12. So I'm going to plug in 12 to the third power. So if you were going to put this in your calculator and you didn't have to the third power, you could multiply 4/3 times pi times 12 times 12 times 12. Okay, it's this base number multiplied that many times. And I'm going to show you where the third power is on our calculator here. So 4/3 for ABC 3 pi parenthesis, I'm going to put 12. And I know we're used to using this squared button. We cannot use that. But I call this thing this little caret top. That means raised to the. So I'm going to push that button. And you should get that little caret top up there. Raised to the third power equals. And we are going to get. I'm going to write to the tenths right now. But it asks us to round to the nearest whole number. So this is not 5 or higher. So it is going to stay the same. So this is about 7,238. Remember, what kind of units do we use for volume? In this case, we have inches cubed. It is still cubed. All volume is cubed. All right, let's try one here. So let's start with our formula. And let's plug in. So let's be careful here. All we need is a radius. Are we given a radius? This is from the center to the outside, so this is my radius. Remember, to the third power is just 10 times 10 times 10. So 4, ABC 3, pi, 10, once again, raised to the, right here, third power. Once again, if you do not have a calculator, with that raised to the third power button, you can just do 10 times 10 times 10. That gets me 4,188 point, I'm around the nearest tenth just for right now, because it does ask us to round to the nearest whole number. This digit is 5 or higher, so that's going to bump it up. I'm going to move it right down here, which would be about 4,189. My units here are centimeters cubed.
That the only piece of information we need to find the volume of a sphere is the measure of the radius. Then we can plug that in to the formula, then we'll have the volume. So let's try some examples here. Find the volume of the sphere to the nearest hundredth. The first thing we'll always do is write the formula we need. 4/3 pi times the radius cubed. I do want to point out that if you don't like this fraction of 4/3, you can rewrite the formula differently by saying 4 pi r cubed divided by 3. I'm going to stick to this for consistency, but I would recommend choosing a way that works best for you and sticking with it. Okay, so now let's write the formula with our radius substituted in. So we look at the sphere, and the radius is here from the center to the edge of the sphere, and it's 7. Now, at this point, I'm going to use the pi key on a calculator. If you're using 3.14, your answers are going to be similar, but a little bit different. And I'm going to keep this fraction. I'm going to multiply 4/3 times pi times 7 cubed. I would recommend pausing it and trying this yourself, and then compare our solutions. So when I multiply these, the volume is 1,436. Rounded to the nearest hundredth is 76 hundredths. And since it's volume, our units are always going to be cubic units. So this one is feet cubed. Now try the one at the right. So it says find the volume of the sphere in terms of pi. So we're going to solve this one the same way by starting with the formula, 4/3 pi r cubed. Looking at the sphere, it gives me that the radius is 9. So I'm going to substitute this into my formula. 4/3 times pi times 9 cubed. Now, in terms of pi is important, it means that our solution is going to have pi written in it. So we need to actually multiply everything except for pi. So if I multiply 4/3 times 9 to the third power, that gives me 972. Then I bring down pi, and in terms of pi, my volume is 972 pi inches cubed. Great, let's do a couple more. Find the volume, round to the nearest tenth. So here's our formula. If you look at this sphere, they gave us the measure of the diameter, but we need the radius. Well, if the diameter is 8, we know the radius is half of 8, or 4. Substitute the radius into your formula. And now we need to multiply these three values. 4/3 times pi times 4 to the third power, rounded to the nearest tenth, gives us 268 and 1/10 millimeters cubed. Next it says a ball of yarn has a diameter of 5 yards. Find the volume of the ball of yarn, round to the nearest hundredth. So right off the bat, we see that they gave us the diameter, but in our formula, we're going to need the radius. If the diameter is 5 yards, half of 5 is 2 5/10. So that's what we'll use for the radius. Write out your formula. Now substitute the radius. And let's multiply. 4/3 times pi times 2.5 to the third power gives us a volume of 65 and 45 hundredths yards cubed. it says, Anthony fills up a beach toy that is shaped like a sphere. He puts 2,304 pi cubic inches of air in the beach toy. What is the diameter of the beach toy? Okay, so we know we're talking about a sphere, and we know that we're talking about volume because of this. Anything that's in cubic units of measurement is volume. We are looking for the diameter of this sphere. Well, since we know the volume of a sphere formula, let's start there and see if that helps us. The volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. Well, we want to look for anything we can substitute into the formula that we're given, and the only piece of information we're given is this volume. So in place of v, let's write what they gave us, 2,304 pi. Then I'll write the rest of the formula. Okay, so now we're looking at this equation and we need to solve it for the radius. We want to get r by itself. And think about what's happening right now with the radius. It's being multiplied by 4/3 and by pi. Well, the inverse of multiplication is division. You can divide out both of those values really in any order that you want. I'm going to start by dividing by pi, and I'll show you why. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. But here on the right, any value over itself is just 1, so that cancels to 1. That also happens on the left. This will cancel to 1. So what I have now is 2,304 equals 4/3 times the radius cubed. Okay, so let's undo the multiplication of 4/3 and divide both sides by 4/3. This will reduce to 1, and 2,304 divided by 4/3 is 1,728. Okay, I'm going to bring this up here. So here's what we have now. The radius cubed equals 1,728. The inverse operation of taking something to the third power or cubing it is to take the cube root. So radius will equal whatever the cube root of 1,728 is. Okay, so we're looking for what number times itself 3 times will give us 1,728. I'll also note that if you're using a calculator, you can take 1,728 and raise it to the power of 1/3. That's just a calculator tidbit. But when we do that, the cube root of 1728 is 12. Always go back and look at your question. It said, what is the diameter? So we have one more step. We know if the radius is 12, then the diameter is double the radius. So the diameter would be 24. And what's our unit of measurement? We have inches. Try a similar problem here. This sphere has a volume of 36 pi cubic inches. What is the radius of the sphere? Always start with your formula. What we're given this time is the volume. So we're going to replace the volume here with 36 pi. I want to start isolating the variables, so I'm going to divide both sides by pi. On both sides, it will cancel or reduce to 1. So now we have 36 equals 4/3 times the radius cubed. Again, to undo this multiplication, we'll divide both sides by 4/3. This reduces to 1, and 36 divided by 4/3 equals 27. So if 27 is the radius cubed, then the radius will equal the cube root of 27. What number times itself 3 times gives us 27? The cube root is 3. 3 inches. All right, well, you just found the volume of sphere.